Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In the history of Carnatic music, we see that one particular period is known as the golden period of Carnatic music. By this, we mean that it refers to an era when music flourished at its very best. And this happens to be the latter part of the 18th century, which is the most important period in the history of South Indian music, when three great composers, that is Vagekaras, emerged, namely Sri Tyagarajar, Sri Muthuswami Dikshidhar and Sri Shyama Sastri. And rightly so, this period is known as the golden period of Carnatic music, because Carnatic music reached its highest stature in several ways and dimensions during their period. It is also very interesting to see that all the three were contemporaries, and within a gap of 14 years they were born. That is, Shyama Sastri, the eldest, was born in 1762. Then Tyagarajar, who came next, was born in 1767, and Muthuswami Dikshidhar, the third of the Trinity, in 1776. And coincidentally, all the three were born in the temple town of Tiruvarur. See, here we could only say that God has his own ways of planning things, and that is why we see that all the three of them were born within such a short span of time, and that too in the same place, Tiruvarur. But what is very, very distinct about their contribution, I would say, is that though they lived in the same place and around the same time, each one of them brought a different, distinct dimension to Carnatic music. And that is what makes them very, very special. While all the three of them rather, followed our own ancient ways of Lakshana and other things in terms of composing, in terms of adhering to the Raga Lakshana, the Tala. They had a complete understanding of the Indian music system, I would say, because when you look at the compositions, each of their compositions, you will understand that their level of understanding, the depth of knowledge they had about Sangeeta, Shastra, language and so many other things is absolutely amazing and mind-boggling. Now, all of them lived at a time and flourished at a time when South Indian classical music prospered under the patronage of the royal Maratha king of Tanjore. We should understand the history also here, that they were living at a time when the Marathas were ruling our particular south and the Tanjore belt especially. So they were ideally living under the influence of these kind of patrons actually. And in spite of that, we see that they retained our pristine tradition through their compositions, and how each one of them created is something very, very interesting for us to study also. As I mentioned earlier, the first thing is that they were great devotees. So unless you are devotees of the highest order, I don't think you'll be blessed with the power of composing such prolific compositions. So actually it's very, in fact, I would say difficult to even decipher what kind of high level devotees they were, because we are all mere mortals, and I think we can't even imagine the kind of devotion they have towards their own Ishta Devata. Like for example, Tyagaraja towards Rama, or the Dikshidhar was a Devi Upasaka, or Shyama Sastri towards his own goddess Bangaru Kamakshi. So that intense kind of devotion is what poured out in terms of coming out rather through their music, through their composition. The second thing is they were great poets, because music is not just about melody and rhythm, but also about great sahitya, and that is where they stood tall, I would say, because of the fact that Tyagarajar had his own inimitable way of composing in Telugu mainly, a few in Sanskrit. Dikshidhar's Sanskrit was absolutely scholarly, and even today we see that if you want to study a composition, there are so many dimensions, and each word itself connotes so many kinds of meanings for us. So the in-depth knowledge of Sanskrit that he had was truly reflected through every composition of his, in terms of the grammar, in terms of the prasa, in terms of how he coined each word, how he put the word according to the context. All this is absolutely, I would say, a masterpiece, a brilliant work. In the case of Shyama Sastri, it is more like, pleading to one's own mother. So that tone is very much evident in his compositions, but nevertheless, even in that, the kind of Telugu he uses, the simple Telugu, which is so communicative, is so beautiful. Again, of course, as musicians, that's most important, because after all, they're using the Sahitya and the Tala and the melody to create compositions. So Tyagarajar had a complete understanding of the music, and so did Dikshadhar and Shyama Sastri. And as I mentioned, they were actually, the divine blessings was what made them compose such prolific compositions. And in the case of each of them, again, we see that they were initiated into Sangeeta Shastra by an extraordinary guru, a spiritual master. Like in the case of Dikshadhar, an old man came and put candy into his mouth, and then after that, he burst into the first song, Srinatha Di Guru Guho. Now, if you look at this composition, you'll be really bewildered as to a first composition of such high Sanskrit, such high musicality. That is what makes them great, I would say. So that way we see that God had destined that some guru came and initiated this musical knowledge, the knowledge of poetry, the knowledge of language, everything was initiated into them, so that they turned out to be one of the most outstanding composers. And of course, they're also proficient in more than one language, that you have to understand. Like, for example, Tyagarajar was proficient in Telugu, and he has also composed many Sanskrit compositions. Even in the Sanskrit, you see how beautifully he uses the words. Similarly, though the Dikshadhar has composed mostly, or I would say that almost everything of his compositions are in Sanskrit, we also see that there are one or two Manipravala Kritis. That is, Manipravala Kriti means amalgamation or coming together of 2-3 languages. Shyama Sastri again was, his compositions are mostly in Telugu, but there are also some Sanskrit compositions, and incidentally is also composed about, I think, 3 compositions in Tamil as well. So that way we see that from the language point of view, all of them had so much of proficiency, and that made for the composition to blossom in full measure. And each one was a highly devoted and inspired spiritual seeker, and music was Nadopasana to them to attain moksha sadhana. So unlike today, where we are so materialistic in terms of teaching music or composing, I mean, that is also depends on the age in which we live in. Today, if somebody is composing a composition, generally we see that it may be for a particular purpose, or sometimes it may be just out of inspiration, without any purpose also it may be there. But the level at which these people composed in terms of making music as a Nadopasana, that is Nada Upasana, using music as a medium to actually do Upasana. That is the highest level of music, I would say, which they were able to attain. But today in this mundane world, I don't think anybody of us can really meet up to that kind of Nadopasana that they all practiced. And to them, it was moksha sadhana. And we also see how throughout their life, all they knew was only music, music, and music. Nothing else was there. In fact, Tyagarajar, we understand from history that he did uncha vritti, and daily he used to eat his food. So that way they had very meager or little wants in their life, and all that they sought was only music, and music as a means of bhakti to reach the Lord. And Tyagarajar, as I said, immersed in Rama Bhakti. Muthuswami Dikshadhar was adept in Sri Vidya Upasana, and Shyama Sastri on his Devi Upasaka of Bangaru Kamakshi, and of course other Devis also he has composed compositions in. Now, going back in history, we say that the period of the Trinity is the golden period of Carnatic music. Now, by Trinity here, there is also a Western Trinity. In our Carnatic music context, the Trinity refers to Tyagarajar, Dikshadhar, Shyama Sastri. Now, it is not only about the period of the Trinity, they created such a deep impact on our music as a whole, the whole music system itself, I would say, such that we have demarcated our history itself as pre-Trinity, Trinity, and the post-Trinity period. Because of this, we can also say that because of the great transition that they brought into music itself, and they lent an exalted status, I would say, to music through their beautiful compositions. Now, why pre-Trinity, Trinity, and post-Trinity? What is it that the Trinity really contributed that they made themselves as the pivotal point in terms of the history of Carnatic music? Pre-Trinity, post-Trinity, and the middle Trinity. Now, if you go back in history, this will be able to explain through that only, that before the time of the Trinity, music had a different purpose, in the sense that, though of course music has always been a path to devotion, we see that in the pre-Trinity period, that is when the composers like Annamacharya, Bhadrachala Ramdas, Purandaradasa, Sadashiva Brahmendra, they were all there. So they are all great saint composers, and for them, again, for them also, like the Trimurti or the Trinity, bhakti was attained through the medium of music. But then in these compositions in the pre-Trinity period, for most of them we see that which have been composed by these great saints that I mentioned earlier, music was a mere, I would say, more a vehicle to convey the Sahityam, in the sense that the Sahitya was very predominantly visible, and the music here was simple melody and repetitive tunes. For example, if you take the composition, a very simple composition of Bhadrachala Ramdas, which has come down to us through the Bhajana tradition in the Ananda Bhairavi Ragam, you see, Rama Bhadra Ra Shri Ramachandra Ra Tamarasalochana Sita Sameta Ra Rama Bhadra Ra Mudu Mudugara Mohanagara Hatabuje Killavada Dirajakshara Ramabhadra Ra Shri Ramachandra Ra Tamarasalochana Sita Sameta Ra Samagana Lolana Chakkanayara Ramadhasunelina Bhadrachalesara Ramabhadra Rashi Ramachandra Ra Tamarasalochana Sita Sameta Ra Ramabhadra Ra. Of course, as a Carnatic musician, I may have added a few embellishments here and there, but nevertheless, in the bhajana tradition, it sounds much more simpler, I would say, these kind of compositions. And you would have observed, even though I may have used a bit more of gamakas than the usual what they use in bhajana tradition, you would have observed two things. First thing, of course, is that the pallavi, and of course, I sang only 2 charanas. There are multiple charanas, and all the charanas follow the same tune. Now, when all the charanas follow the same tune, it is understood obviously that the sahitya is more important than the melody. So, the music or the melody becomes an aid to kind of highlight the sahityam. The second thing, of course, you saw was the simplicity of the melody. This is very important because we also understand that while the saints composed, their focus was not on the musicality. We'll be talking about the Trinity to see how the shift has happened from the focus of only Sahitya to focus of more on the melodic aspects as well. So in the pre-Trinity time, what happens is that all these composers compose such simple compositions. And also you see that the compositions of all these composers I mentioned, like Purandaradasa, Bhadrachala Ramdas, Sadashiva Brahmendra, they've all come to become a part of the bhajana tradition. And even today they are a part of the bhajana tradition, because of the fact that it is in simple tunes. And in bhajana, you would also obviously know that in bhajana it's about one lead singer singing and the others following him. So if the others who are following, they may be initiated into music, they may not be initiated into music. Some of them kind of, maybe old people, some may be young people. So another important thing which comes to the fold is that the melody also operates within a particular range. It doesn't go too high or too low. So it operates mostly around the madhyasthai so that it makes it comfortable for everybody to sing. And also the simple tunes makes it such that you need not know what the ragam is, you need not know what the swaras. For example, I sang in Ananda Bhairavi, but immaterial of whether you know what Ananda Bhairavi is or immaterial of whether you know what the name of this particular composition, the raga name is, you are able to follow and catch on because of the simplicity of the tune. So every composition like this in the pre-Trinity period, you would see that the raga movement was very, very simple structured so that everybody could also join in as a congregational singing. Then we also see that there are limited number of ragas which came into fore here, that there are ragas like Sahana, Ananda Bhairavi, Shankarabharanam, Kambodi, Saveri. Like this, there are some restricted number of ragas around which all the compositions operated. And the area of ragas, throwing open the area of ragas came only in the time of the Trinity. Now, the Trinity actually brought about fresh thoughts in their musicality, and that's what makes them very, very distinct. Here, another landmark event which happens to be a part of the time of the Trinity is that while definitely Bhakti Bhava was important for every composer and every composition was replete with this Bhakti Bhava, what is important here is that music took a very, very important aspect of their compositions. Music became a very important and integral part of the composition, such that what blossomed is in the history we call as art music. That is, music became as important as the lyrics. And sometimes we could also say that the music here became a language in itself sometimes, where you see that a composition like, for example, रंग साई पीले चीते ओ रंग साई. So there are only two words here, O Rangasai Pilichite. But what comes out through the entire Rendukala Aditala here is the Kambodi Raga in its full blossoming form, I would say. So there are many such compositions where you see the focus has been in terms of bringing out the contour of the raga, bringing out the beauty of the raga, bringing out the scale of the raga, bringing out the different facets of the raga has been a predominant feature. And that's why I say also that music as a language itself evolved during the time of the Trinity. And they opened up the floodgate of ragas. Now, from a limited range of ragas, we see that umpteen number of ragas have been explored by this Trinity. Many of them were created for the first time by them also. And how each of them use the raga, tala and sahitya in different forms, pattern, structure, shades made them unique. For example, if you let us take an example outside the domain of music. Suppose I give a particular artist, I mean a painter, I give him the brush, paint and canvas and ask him to paint scenery. Now let's first imagine that we have multiple kind of artists here. About maybe 5 artists are sitting in front of me. I give them the same paint, paintbrush and canvas and tell them, give them also a topic and say that now please paint a scenery for me. Now, if all the 5 of them are given individually, they are made to sit alone and paint that scenery. Each one would exercise his own imagination to it and paint the scenery. So, for example, for somebody, the river and the river bank may become a scenery. For somebody else, the mountains and some house may be a scenery. For some other person, the sea and the seaside may be a scenery. So there are different ways. Somebody may just think of the seashore, somebody may think of the riverside and paint some beautiful trees around there, plants around there. Like this, a scenery may mean different things to all these 3 artists. But nevertheless, they all concur to the topic of scenery. So there is no ambiguity about the fact that they all took different topics. They were given the same topics, but each one painted or created a picture according to his own imagination. And that is what I would also compare here, the Trinity, where given the same Raga like Kalyani or Shankarabharanam, each one painted his own beautiful picture with the colors, that is, the colors of 7 swaras given to them. They painted different pictures. Now, if we give the same 5 artists, we don't give them any topic at all and then tell them, paint whatever you like. So each one may paint whatever they want. Somebody may paint a portrait, somebody may paint a scenery, somebody else may paint a flower vase. So like that, we see that here also in the case of the Trinity, given the broader spectrum of music, each one created their own ragas, their own kind of imagination with the ragas also. Now again, in a narrower sense, if one particular singular artist, you give one topic, the same scenery I give him, and tell him you paint a picture, each time I would see that he is not going to paint the same picture again and again. So using the same material, each time the concept of scenery through his imagination becomes different. So here also we would say that the same applies to music, where a Kalyani or a Shankarabharanam given to even the single same artist. For example, we know that Tyagaraja composed about 30 plus kirtanas in Shankarabharanam. But if you take all the kritis composed by Shankarabharanam by Tyagaraja, you would see that every composition explores a different facet. Not one is identical with the other. The same we could say of Dikshadhar also, of Shyama Sastri also, where they have composed so many compositions in ragas like Shankarabharanam, Bhairavi, Todi, Kalyani, Kambodi. But each one of them would explore that particular raga in different facets, in terms of the melody, in terms of the tala. One may be in Kanda Chapu, one may be in Mishra Chapu, like that. Or it may be in a different gate, different Kala Pramana, different Edupu. The internal structures may be different. So there are different ways in which even one particular artist or particular Vagekara conceptualizes the same concept in different ways through different points of time. Now, beyond all this, we also see that sometimes the artist may spring a surprise on us in terms of creating something which we never even thought of. And that's what I would also say is applicable to Dikshadhar or Tyagaraja especially, where unimaginable kind of ragas, the permutation combinations they created. And it is also not about just creating these ragas, but also giving them a form, a dimension, a concrete structure, I would say, through very, very beautiful compositions. So the concept of Nada Rachana, or creation of melody in different dimensions, none resembling each other, is what made them also very, very important as the trinity of Carnatic music. In fact, in pre-Trinity time, we also see that many Sahityas have been composed to the same tune. So that again reiterates the fact that the Sahitya has been imported. You would see that several compositions all in the same raga, or all in the same kind of a tune or mittu, what we call, happening. So this reiterates that point. And each raga in their compositions of the Trinity seems complete in itself. That is also very, very important. Now, if they take even a small trivial ragam, you see that the composition is so replete with that raga bhava first. Secondly, it gives a complete contour of that ragam itself. For example, if you take a ragam like Chandra Jyoti, which was created by Tyagaraja. Sa re ga ma pa da sa sa da pa ma ga ri sa pa ma pa da pa ma ga ri ri ma pa da sa da pa ma ga ri sa. So now, a ragam like this, when you are creating, it is very important that you bring out the entire contour of the ragam in the first phrase itself in terms of defining the raga. Otherwise, there will be ambiguity and you'll be wondering what it is all about. So, for example, he created 2 compositions in Chandra Jyoti, one Bhaga Yanaya and another Shashivadana. In Bhaga Yanaya, you see, Bhaga Yanaya ni mayalento Bhagayaniya ni mayalento Brahma kaina koni yada tarama Bhagayaniya, where the composition started on Bhagayaniya Garisa. Next, Bhagamapama So you got the Purvanga. Ne maya sada sa sari re. So put together you get the Arona Aruna. So as a contrast to this, another beautiful composition of his is Shashivadana, where you see he starts in the Uttaranga and goes to the Purvanga. Nevertheless, he covers all the gamut of the raga completely, like Shashivadana Bhakta Janavana Shashivadana Bhakta Janavana Shankarane Talagalana Shashivadana Tasadada Pamara Pamagarisa. Or another composition to take. Marugelera O Raghava Marugelera, where Jayantashri, you would see that it's a very little difference between this and Hindolam. That is only the inclusion of the pa makes it another ragam. So here, for us not to be confused with Hindolam, which is a very popular ragam, he in the very first phrase itself introduces that Panchama so that you know that this is something new, like Maruge. Hindolam we know is Sagamadani sa Sani Damaga sa. Whereas here, Jayantashri Sagamadani sa Sani Dama Pamaga sa. So it's a little pa that gives the identity to this ragam. So in the first phrase, Marugelara o Raghava. So it also is important to understand here that Sagama Dhanisa, if you had traversed in the Arona Krama in the first phrase, you would have only got more a feel of that Hindolam, whereas the Avarohana, which contains this Sani Dama Pamagasa Marugelara. So in such tricky ragas where you see that some ragas may be very popular, but from that he has created another ragam, his new ragam, which differs probably in one particular note, then he introduces that particular note to you so that you immediately are able to understand and get cognizance of the fact that this is not what I am thinking, but a new raga that he has created. So this also applies to Dikshadhar, where he also created many new ragas, but then he gave a clear identity to these ragas through the sancharas, through his composition. Of course, Shyama Sastri only uses the time-tested ragas like Danyasi, Saveri, Kalyani, Kambodi, Yadukula Kambodi and on. But even here also you see that every phrase is so replete with the raga bhava. And the post-Trinity, of course, followed the path of the Trinity, but they also created new avenues for themselves, which we'll be seeing in the later session. Nevertheless, the period of the Trinity is known as the golden period of Carnatic music because they brought about a complete change, complete revolution in the thought process in terms of how music itself can be conceived. And they also, what they did very importantly was they laid the path for the future. That is very, very important, where you see that the period of the golden period brought about a significant change in the nature of music in terms of how music was conceptualized and executed. And most importantly, the period of the Trinity paved the way for the development of several aspects of music in future.